Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 2nd of August, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So just a quick shout out here that I'll be attending a local meetup down here in Melbourne, Australia. So if you're around in Melbourne and want to attend this meetup to watch me basically do an Ethereum AMA live, that's what I'm going to be doing at this meetup. It's on the 17th of August at 5:30 p.m. In Melbourne City here. I'll basically on Collins Street in Melbourne City, and the full details will be linked in the YouTube description below. There's this kind of meetup page as well that you can RSVP on. But yeah, I'll be doing an AMA basically at the end of the, I guess, talks that are being given. There'll be a bunch of networking happening there as well, and hope to see any of the, I guess, like fellow Melbourne or even just Aussie people that watch and listen to the Daily Gwei at this event. So yeah, as I said, I'll link this in the YouTube description for full details on that. All right, so there was a flurry of fresh ETH futures ETFs that were issued over the last, I guess, 48 hours here. And you can see basically all the different companies that issued these, from VanEck, ProShares, Grayscale. You know, you recognize these names, Bitwise, right? You'll recognize these names. They've been thrown around quite a lot in the crypto ecosystem over the last few years, and it is worth noting that these are futures ETFs. They aren't spot ETFs, so they're definitely different to the ETFs that have been filed around BTC by BlackRock and others out there. But really, these are the kind of first steps, right, to get the futures ETF approved, because there are already Bitcoin futures ETFs approved, and then after that you get the spot ETFs approved. So as I said, I think when BlackRock first filed that Bitcoin ETF application, once the BTC ETFs get approved, right, or even before they get approved, the ETH ETFs are coming, right? The futures and then spot ETF. It's just natural. That's the natural progression there. What comes after that, I don't know. You know, what ETFs are approved after that, I don't know. But once BTC gets approved, I think it becomes easier for, or at least a lot easier for something like ETH to get approved. As for others, it's kind of a weird thing, right? Because you think about who approves these ETFs. It's the SEC, right? Now, the SEC is going after many of the biggest tokens and claiming that they're unregistered securities, and have basically said, some of the members of the SEC have said that they think that everything except Bitcoin is a security. So if they were to approve an ETH ETF, right, while still kind of sending the signal out there that ETH was a security, which I think that's their kind of like weakest argument, because the CFTC has claimed that ETH is a commodity. ETH does not look like a security at all. And I mean, it also goes back to them losing that case with Ripple, where basically the judge said that the XRP is not a security, but it can be offered as part of an investment contract, which is a security, right? So when looking at it like that, I mean, if the SEC was to approve an ETH ETF, it's basically them conceding the point, and basically them sending the signal out there that ETH is not a security from their point of view, right? So there's that point of view. But then you look at the other tokens out there, because ETH isn't actually... So, okay, let me step back for a second here. Just because the SEC has kind of signaled that they think ETH is a security doesn't really mean as much as them, I guess, like putting actual assets in a lawsuit against Coinbase and Binance and saying that they are unregistered securities. They didn't do that for ETH, right? They left ETH out of those lawsuits, which people found surprising, considering that the SEC had been signaling that they thought ETH was a security. I didn't consider it to be surprising, because as I've said before, the chances of ETH being labeled a unregistered security or whatever, or even the ETH ICO being an unregistered securities offering, basically zero in my mind, for a number of different reasons that I've gone through before, so I won't rehash that discussion here. But some of the tokens that were included in the lawsuit against Coinbase and Binance were very popular tokens, such as Matic, part of the Polygon project there, Lido, LDO, Cardano with ADA, Sol, Solana. It doesn't matter if you don't like these tokens or do like them, they are some of the biggest tokens on the market. Like if you go to the top 10, they're all in the top 10, excluding stablecoins. All of those tokens are in the top 10. So those are the ones kind of next in line, right? If you go down the market cap rankings, the next in line to get an ETF is kind of BNB and XRP, then ADA, Sol, TRX, LTC, Matic, right? That's the kind of top 10 excluding stablecoins. So will the SEC actually approve those things with an active case against Coinbase and Binance? I don't think so. And as I said, I don't know what's going to be the next ETF after ETH gets approved. Well, I mean, obviously we have to get BTC spot ETF approved, then the ETH one. Then after that, I think it's really I don't know. It seems to be anyone's game after that, but there's very few players who actually have a chance there. And honestly, I don't think we actually need ETFs for most of these assets, or nor should there be ETFs for most of these assets. I think that when you look at what an ETF is and the customer of an ETF, it's people wanting to get tax advantage exposure to assets, and a lot of these people are doing that through their retirement accounts. Now, obviously, it's up to people to to decide where they put their money. But I think that at least shielding them a little bit from putting their retirement accounts into trash is probably a good idea. Now, obviously, I've said before that I think that a lot of these financial regulations don't actually help anyone, because they really don't. I mean, if someone really wants to put their retirement money into like some random coin that they think is going to go to the moon, they're going to find a way to do that, right? But when it comes to, I guess, like companies themselves being able to do this, and like companies that manage other people's money and manage the retirement accounts, I think limiting what they can put that money into in terms of crypto assets is probably the better play, because there would have been some of these players. Let's just say, for example, that Luna had an ETF, right? There would have been some of these players that put their retirement account money into Luna, not all of it, but a portion of it, and then Luna literally went to basically zero, right? So that's just an example of how this stuff can play out. And when you are kind of talking about people's retirement money, that's obviously a very heavily regulated industry there in multiple countries around the world, not just the US. So that's just some extra color there on that. But it is positive to see that these companies have filed Ether futures ETFs, and I'm sure spot ETFs will follow immediately after the BTC spot ETF gets approved. I would wager within days, to be honest. If any of the BTC spot ETFs get approved, I would say within days that these companies would apply for an ETH spot ETF. Now, who knows when that would get approved? Is it going to be like a year out from when the BTC one gets approved? I don't know. The timings are hard. If you want to follow along with ETF news, Eric Balcones here is a good follow on that. He covers a lot of ETF stuff. He's the senior ETF analyst at Bloomberg, and I always see updates from him about this stuff, so you can go check that out there. Right, a couple of bullish posts from Ultrasound Money over the last 24 hours. So the first one they put out, I should actually cover, is that we have burned $10 billion worth of ETH over the last 2 years. So since the burn, basically. It actually is the anniversary of the burn. I think, when did EIP 1559 go live? Oh, my memory is failing me right now. I'm just going to quickly Google that, because it is August, but I think it's like not so it's August 5th. Yeah, I thought so. So okay, we're almost there, but I guess Ultrasound Money wanted to do that nice round number there. But yeah, the 2-year anniversary of EIP 1559 is coming up. That's pretty cool. But so basically, it's been 2 years since it went live. So $10 billion worth of ETH has been burned, which works out to almost $10,000 of ETH burned every minute. And what's insane about this is that I often see people talking about things like, why doesn't ETH have its own Michael Saylor, right? Why doesn't ETH have its own billionaire just aping lots of money into ETH, buying ETH, and kind of like just indiscriminately buying it? Doesn't matter if it's the top or the bottom, they just buy ETH. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we do in the background. Maybe there's just silent people out there that aren't making noise like Saylor is, that are buying ETH in like large quantities. That's always possible. But at the same time, we have the burn, which is not a net buyer of ETH, so to speak, right? Like, it'd be impossible to work this out, but like, I would wager that a lot of the ETH that is burned is not being bought before it is burned, right? It already has been bought, and it already has been held by whoever is doing the transactions on the network. Like, I know for me, for example, personally, like when I use ETH for gas fees, I will try and replenish it at a regular interval by buying ETH on the market. But I know a lot of other people that don't do that, where they'll just have ETH that they've had for a while. They'll do a transaction that'll get burnt, but it's not like a net kind of positive effect on the ETH price then, because no new ETH was bought. But in saying that, with the burn, it isn't just someone buying the ETH, right? Like Saylor buying BTC. It's the ETH being erased from existence. Like, this ETH no longer exists. It is completely gone. And it means that ETH has been deflationary as well, for quite a while, as I've gone over before, and $10 billion worth is I think a lot more than what Saylor has bought in terms of buying BTC here. If I actually look up the current USD amount, I think Saylor has bought a pretty big amount of BTC. I think it's at what is it? The current value is $4.5 billion. So yeah, he's bought a lot of BTC. That kind of got ahead of me. That was an insane amount of BTC that he's bought there, but that's still less than 50% of the total ETH that's been burned. And the burn is faster than Saylor can buy BTC here. Now, obviously, as I said, it's not a one-to-one comparison, but when you look at this, Bitcoin doesn't have this, right? Bitcoin doesn't have a burn on BTC, and even if they did, their rate of burn would be significantly less than ETH, than the Ethereum's rate of burn of ETH. So that's why I try to explain to people. And it's like, yeah, okay, there's Saylor being public about buying BTC, blah blah blah. But really, if you look at what's happened with ETH against BTC as an asset, the ETH BTC ratio has remained relatively flat during the bear market, which is a distinct difference to last bear market where ETH went down 90% against BTC. And I really do attribute that positive performance directly to the fact that we have EIP 1559 live, we're burning this ETH, and the merge is live, which reduced the issuance, right? We're on proof of stake instead of proof of work. That's what I directly attribute it to. Because some people will say, oh, well, the ETH price is the same price it was when EIP 1559 went live, or lower, depending on what you look at it. And it's kind of like, hasn't gone up that much. But that's not the way to look at it. The way I look at it is always looking at ETH against other crypto assets, especially BTC, because traditionally BTC has been the strongest asset within crypto because it's strong. It's stronger than every other crypto asset in a bear market, not in a bull market, but in a bear market. That's where the important kind of performance happens. Because obviously, going from cycle to cycle, not every coin comes along for the ride. But ETH being so performant and ETH being so bullish really means that once that demand comes back, as I've discussed before, once the bull market comes back, ETH is going to be a huge beneficiary of this. Even though there have been players like Saylor buying a lot of BTC, ETH is just perpetually burning, Ethereum is just perpetually burning ETH. This is not going to stop unless the Ethereum network stopped being used at all, which seems pretty much 0% at this point, right? Then the burn is not going to stop. Now, of course, it depends on what the burn is. Like, it depends on the Gwei price, if we're net deflationary or not, because there's that ultrasound barrier that I've discussed before. But at the same time, I've also discussed how it's much easier to burn ETH than it is to issue ETH. And then this is just the burn, right? This isn't even discussing all the other bullish points of ETH, like obviously the ETH staking and then restaking ETH used as a store of value, as collateral, all these sorts of stuff, as I've discussed before. So yeah, I don't think we need a Saylor. I don't want a Michael Saylor in ETH. I don't want some crazy dude, bull posting nonsense stuff on Twitter about ETH and about Ethereum. I don't think that the Ethereum community and culture wants that. That can stay in Bitcoin. And I don't think we need that. We are, every day, every minute, every block burning ETH and burning a crap ton of it to boot. So yeah, very bullish there. Now, speaking of ETH staking, we are at 25 million ETH staked if you include the current queue for staking. So there is 22.5 million ETH, or $42 billion worth, that is actively staking, which is now greater than all the market caps of every L1 out there, or every kind of other token out there, except Bitcoin, of course. So it's even greater than BNB. So BNB has a $38 billion market cap. ETH staking, current ETH stake, not including what's in the queue, is $42 billion. So it's bigger than every other kind of coin out there, which is insane, right? It really is. It really just shows you the difference in how big of a market cap ETH has compared to other coins here. And then there's 2.5 million ETH, or $4.5 billion that is queuing to stake right now. I do wonder if far into the future, after the flippening has happened, if we'll have like a staked ETH flippening. Could you imagine how funny it would be if if let's say, I don't know, 50% of ETH was staked or something like that, and that US dollar value was enough to flip Bitcoin? Because within the Ethereum community, we've talked about this for quite a while now, all the way going back to like 2017. This concept of a flippening. But when the flippening happens and when it becomes permanent, it's going to become very interesting to see just how far ahead ETH gets from BTC, right? Like, obviously, The flippening ratio, I think, is like zero point 0.0 or 0.16 or 0.17 or something like that. So it's about double from where we are right now, over double from where we are right now, obviously. I think not 3 times, like 2.8 times or something like that. But after that, like, it goes to 0.2 and then 0.3 and then higher and higher, because there's no reason for it to stop, really, in my mind. I mean, unless for some reason stop being bullish on Ethereum and ETH, which I don't see happening, then there is no reason for it to stop. And then because of that, the obviously USD value of, or I guess like the ratio value of staked ETH is also going up because it's the same ETH. So do we get to a point where the total ETH staked market cap exceeds the Bitcoin market cap? That, I don't know, we need a name for that, right? The stake flippening or something like that, or the double flippening, or the cope flippening, because there'll be a lot of cope. That's for sure from the Bitcoiners out there. But yeah, that's just an interesting thing to ponder. It's something that I hadn't really thought about before. But as more ETH gets staked, as the value of ETH goes up, as we flip Bitcoin and just permanent flip. And the reason why I say a permanent flip is because I do think there's a strong chance this cycle ETH does flip BTC, but just by nature of that happening and the monumentous occasion that event is, a lot of traders and speculators are going to take advantage of that. Because, for example, let's say ETH BTC has done an incredible run, it's flipped BTC, and you're a trader. What are you going to do? Well, obviously, you're going to try and short that, because you're going to see all this euphoria everywhere. You're going to see, your TA, your charts telling you to short it, and then they're going to short it, and they're going to rotate into BTC because BTC is the laggard. So it's going to be, I believe, a temporary flip. I don't believe it's going to be permanent the first time it happens. You'll see ETH go above, and then ETH come back below. But in terms of a permanent flippening, it's going to be hard to tell. Like, do we go another bear market where ETH basically sits at like a very strong ratio, maybe something between 0.1 and 0.15 or something like that, right? Because of the fact that obviously it performs a lot better in bear markets now. And then the next cycle after that, do we get the permanent flippening, or does it happen in the bear market? It's kind of hard to tell, right? I mean, it's not only hard to tell, it's impossible to tell. Like, I don't know. But I do think that it'll be temporary first. I don't think it's just going to flip and then keep going, because that's just not the way markets work. It doesn't matter. This isn't even talking about fundamentals. This is just literally the way that markets work, the way human psychology works there. But yeah, anyway, very cool to see that 25 million ETH will be at stake pretty soon once the queue clears here. I mean, yeah, it's just really been up only in ETH staking land. All right, so I believe I covered this maybe a couple months ago when I first heard about it, but there is another consensus client being built for Ethereum called the Lambda Ethereum Consensus node, which is being built by the Lambda class kind of venture studio here. So they are now going to be doing their daily meetings in public, in English. All the documentation, dailies, and meetings will be public, and they already have an internal Gantt chart, and they're pretty sure that they'll be able to have an MVP in the upcoming months. So another consensus client or another consensus node on the way here from Lambda, the Lambda studio, which is great to see. Obviously, because we have a bunch of clients out there. We value client diversity in Ethereum. It's always good to see more clients coming online and more clients being developed, even if the end result is that they don't get that much market share. I think it's still beneficial to the ecosystem for a number of different reasons. One of those being the fact that we just have more eyeballs on the Ethereum kind of like code base and spec, and more people working on Ethereum core, which is obviously what we want to be seeing. But this, to me, looks like something like what Reth is to the execution layer, where essentially it's being built by like this outside studio. I guess Paradigm is like a venture studio, you could call it. Lambda here is also, I believe, a venture studio, but they're a bit different. Obviously, their Paradigm is a proper VC, right? They've got a venture studios, or I guess like a research arm is kind of a thing that attaches onto that. But yeah, great to see this, and I can't wait to see the MVP come out around this. All right, the Ethereum.org team announced today that the first Ethereum.org Translatathon has commenced. So Ethereum.org's Translatathon is a collaborative hackathon-style online event where participants can compete for prizes by translating Ethereum.org's website into different languages. Now, I think I teased this a little while ago, but basically, This little thread explains how this works. There are two categories that can choose to participate in the Translatathon. I mean, I'm going to screw up saying that. It's a hard word to say. Teams and individuals. Teams can have up to 3 members, and the team scores will be calculated based on the sum of translated words by all members. And individuals will participate in the Translatathon individually, and the final score will be calculated based on their number of translated words. All participants, teams, and individuals are required to apply in order to participate and compete for prizes. So yeah, if that sounds like something you want to do, you want to, I guess, like be a part of, you can translate various ethereum.org pages and win prizes for doing so. So I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, the privacy and scaling explorations team at the Ethereum Foundation here has announced that the rate limiting nullifier or RLN protocol is production ready. As a zero knowledge gadget, RLN is designed for spam prevention while preserving anonymity. You can learn more about RLN and the RLN trusted ceremony in this blog post. So yes, there is a trusted setup ceremony going on right now. I think you can participate in it if you kind of read this blog post. I think it's got some instructions here about how to participate in this, so that's just something else you guys might be interested in. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, this privacy and scaling explorations group has been around for a little while now. They're doing a lot of great work in the field of zero knowledge, of course. It's definitely at the bleeding edge, and it's definitely something that if you are into zero knowledge and you are into bleeding edge research, you should be paying attention to. So I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do that there. But yeah, as I said, if you want to be part of this trusted setup ceremony, there is a guide actually in front of my screen right now. You can see this in the blog post. It is very technical. There's no front end as far as I know. It definitely requires you to play around with the command line here or the terminal here. So yeah, just keep that in mind when checking this out. All right, so Tony has a fresh website for us today at reorged.pix. So he says here, reorged blocks prevent some challenges. To provide a clearer overview of reorgs and the entities involved, such as CL clients, validators, relays, and builders, I've created a quick dashboard. And then he continues, reorgs not only cause the total volume of the chain to shrink, as a reorg block results in no transactions for 12 seconds, but also creates potential issues with unbundling, missed head votes, and increased MEV in the subsequent block. Now, I discussed reorgs yesterday actually on the show, and this was very timely that this came out after I recorded yesterday's episode because it really does explain what the concern is around reorgs. And as I just said, and I read here from what Tony said, it creates potential issues with unbundling, missed head votes, and increased MEV in the subsequent block here. So if you want to monitor some of the reorgs that are happening on the consensus on the beacon chain, you can see the reorgs happening here. As I said before, reorgs are totally normal. They happen, every day in Ethereum, basically, or most days, I guess you could say. And you can actually visualize that on here. Actually, it is pretty much every day. You can actually visualize that here on this new site, which has a lot of visualizations broken down by entity, which is great to see. So kudos to Tony for putting this together. But he also has a longer kind of explanation here about reorgs generally in this Twitter in this tweet here, which you should check out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, there was a tool that I came across here introduced by 5/9. So he's introduced something called tx.cool, which is a UI/UX explorations tool for on-chain data. So you can basically go here and click chat and basically start a chat with, I guess, like from an example if you want to. So you can view an example here. You can go here, select the chat on the left-hand side, one of these chats if they want to load here. Yeah, it's basically visualizing kind of like on-chain messages that have been kind of sent on the Ethereum blockchain. You can kind of go down to different messages in these examples here. You can see this is the start of 5/9.eth's message history with this ENS address here. And yeah, there's a few different examples of how this works. And there's a GitHub page here for you to check out as well from the tweet. But yeah, these kind of visualization tools are pretty cool because usually when people want to, I guess, like look at these messages that are being sent on chain, what they do is they basically go to the transaction on Etherscan and kind of decode the message on there, which is fine. But if you want to kind of like explore just public messages happening, then this is the kind of like way to do it here, which is I think is very cool. So yeah, you can go check this out. We'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Kayla Phillips here from Truffle VC has shared a pretty great graphic here around the emerging Rollup SDK landscape by layer. Now, I've talked about this a lot on the Refuel for months now. You know, this emerging kind of stack where essentially there are different Rollup SDK stacks from different teams, such as OP Stack and ZK Stack and the Polygon Stack and things like that, which make it really easy to deploy rollups. Now, of course, not all of these things are created equal. They have different trade-offs and different kind of benefits and pros and cons, I guess. And in this graphic here, you can see some of them listed out with their different types and stuff like that. So let's just focus on OP Stack, for example. On the left-hand side, you say, you know, what's the focus and differentiation of OP Stack? Well, they're rolling out what's called a superchain, which is a network of L2s with shared security, bridging, and communication. What's the rollup type? It's a smart contract. Execution, you know, what are they using? They're using the EVM. Settlements, of course, they're using Ethereum for optimistic settlements. Data availability, Ethereum. But I think you'll be able to use other chains as well. And Sequencer is centralized right now. And then there's other ones out here. Let's look at something totally different, like Sovereign. They're focusing on ZK rollups. The rollup type is Sovereign instead of a smart contract. They're using Risk Zero's ZK EVM. They're going to be doing recursive zero-knowledge proofs for settlement. Data availability would be done on Celestia or Avail, but it could also be done on Ethereum. I think when it comes to data availability, if these are open SDKs, then you can basically just choose where you're both settling to and you know, what chain you're settling to and what data availability layer you're using as well. And Sequencer, same thing, right? So I think a lot of these are variable and a lot of these are kind of like chop and change. But yeah, it's a great, I guess, like attempt on this kind of chart here. And there's also a chart below that on the emerging no-code rollup as a service landscape by layer as well, such as Alt Layer and Caldera and Eclipse that I've talked about before. But you can go check these visualizations out for yourself. I'll link them in the YouTube description below. All right, so I put out a tweet today that I'm going to rant a little bit about. So I said, another day of the majority of crypto Twitter not understanding the difference between a centralized front end and a decentralized protocol. And then I said a while ago that I thought CT's or crypto Twitter's collective IQ was going negative soon. I think at this point it finally has. And that's just a little frustration jab, I like to call them there. But the reason why I tweeted this out was because I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but the Uniswap Labs team disabled, or I guess like removed Hex, the Hex token from the Uniswap front end, the official Uniswap front end, because of the lawsuit against Richard Hart from the SEC, claiming that Hex is an unregistered security. Now, as I've explained plenty of times on the Refuel, the difference here is that the Uniswap front end that Uniswap Labs runs, the official front end, I guess a quote-unquote official, right, is centralized. It is not a decentralized front end. But the smart contracts that the front end talks to on Ethereum are completely decentralized, right? The Uniswap Labs or any other team out there or anyone else cannot disable trading of any token on the Uniswap smart contracts because they are completely decentralized. And there was a good little picture posted here from 0x Luca here, or LVCA here, where they use an analogy of the menu no longer lists Hex, but you can still ask the waiter. Simple as that. So, and they visualize it here as the back end is the kitchen, right? With chefs in the kitchen. Front end is the dining tables where you've got your menus, and the APIs are the kind of waiters. So essentially what the Uniswap smart contracts are on Ethereum are an open API for anyone to talk to, and they are, in Uniswap's case, are completely decentralized. No one can change what they do once the code's been deployed. So just because the front end, so the menu that you choose from, right, the Uniswap front end has removed an option, you can still ask the waiter and say, hey, I want, you know, let's just say, for example, they remove the steak from the menu. Let's just say, and then you ask them, you're like, no, I actually want the steak. And then the backend will still respect that request because the backend is still able to fulfill that request, right? So that's a really good analogy there from 0x Luca, which I appreciated. But this is only really true for a handful of contracts. A lot of the contracts have multi-sigs or have some form of governance or things like that. But at the same time, I mean, it's only true in the sense of what's truly decentralized. But at the same time, in terms of interacting with the contracts, it's the same thing. Again, if the Aave front end was to disable something on there in one of their money markets from their front end, you could still access that through the Aave contract because it's not disabled at the contract level. It's only disabled at the front front end level, which doesn't make these things centralized in my eyes, doesn't make the protocol centralized. And that's why I got so frustrated, because I saw so many comments from people who said, oh, so much for DeFi, so much for decentralized finance. It's just CeFi. And these were comments from not only kind of random people on crypto Twitter that have like anon pictures and that, you see these people, but also people who have names attached to them, who have massive followings. I mean, I saw the guy from Coin Bureau making a comment on, I think it was Eric Wohl's tweet about this, saying something like along those lines. I can't remember the exact tweet, but it's on there. If you go to Eric Wohl's latest tweets, you'll be able to see them. And I got frustrated because I'm like, dude, you have a large audience. You have a massive YouTube subscriber base as well. And you're basically saying something that is inaccurate. And as an educator, that really annoys me. So when people say to me, you shouldn't get annoyed about this stuff, like, come on, guys, I'm annoyed because it's not just the random CT accounts that have like no followers that are saying this stuff. It's the big accounts too. It's the people who actually have a massive following that are spreading this literal misinformation or fake news. That's what gets me the most upset. I know you guys understand this, and I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but I think that it's something that still frustrates me a lot about this ecosystem, and I'm hoping it can change over time. I don't think it will, because humans going to human, right? There are different incentives at play here for spreading different news. I guess it's the same with everything. But yeah, just wanted to explain that tweet for you guys and expand on it there. But anyway, thank you everyone for listening and watching. That's going to be it for today. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give the video a like, subscribe to the newsletter, and join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.